All right, welcome along to the RTÉ Soccer Podcast. Raf Diallo here. You can watch or listen in every week on RTÉ.ie, YouTube, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm joined today by former Dundalk striker David McMillan and former St. Pat's and Shelbourne midfielder Conan Byrne, and it's a packed one for us today. As you can imagine, we'll be reacting to the Euro 2024 final as Spain became Kings of Europe for the fourth time last night. We'll also be chatting about how Ireland got on against England in their Women's Euro qualifier at Carrow Road and building up to Tuesday's game against France at Páirc Uí Chaoimh, as well as the League of Ireland clubs' European second legs. Now, for Shamrock Rovers' tie against Vikingur, I've been speaking to Icelandic sports journalist Jóhann Ingi Hafþórsson of the Morgunblaðið newspaper, but there, of course, was another subject matter in our interview from last Friday, which you can, of course, watch on YouTube and listen to in all the usual places. And there's also a link to the full interview below in this week's episode in the description box on YouTube and also on RT.ie. And yes, that is the 8-month saga being over. And we can say hello to Heimir Hallgrimsson, former Iceland and Jamaica boss, and the new Republic of Ireland manager and permanent successor to Stephen Kenny. But first, we'll start on events in Berlin. And before that, a hello to Conan and David. Hope you're both keeping well on this Monday morning.
Good, thanks, Raf.
Good stuff.
Yeah,
So,
all good, Raf.
yeah, so last night, of course, a decent final in my view, anyway. Spain beating England 2-1 in Berlin at the Olympiastadion, and Nico Williams opening the score in just after half time. Cole Palmer with a good finish to equalise, but then Mikel Oyarzabal scoring the winning goal, and then ensuring that two Basque players also from the two biggest Basque clubs scored the goals for Spain in the decider. And I suppose, Conan, it's fair to say Spain are deserving winners if we go through the entire tournament.
Yeah, football one. I think just from the get go, really, when in their 3-0 victory over Croatia, it was certainly a talking point. It was like, whoa, where did this come from? Because before the tournament, not many people were mentioning Spain as being up there as potential winners of the competition. Everyone was saying France and possibly Germany being the host nation. I never felt England. I was surprised they got so far. They did have a nice draw in that led them to the final, but I didn't see them getting to the final from the get go. So yeah, I suppose the surprising team were Spain in the sense that not many people were talking about them, but it's the way they played and how they started the competition. Blown away by their performance against Spain, and then again against Italy in the next game as well, where they obviously got the OG to win the game, but their overall performance and their style of play, the way they play, how comfortable they all are on the ball. It kind of we saw it fairly that they could go far, and ultimately they did, and they were excellent. I think only one game went extra time. That was the win against Germany, where Mika Marina scored, and the famous celebration, the corner flag that his dad did. But apart from that's not even a blip. It was the only game that went extra time. They won every other game, and fully deserving winners. Like you could go through their whole team, and say they did well. They did well. I don't think there was one player on the Spanish team that underperformed. And even with Dani Olmo, we talked. I put out a tweet last night. He probably wasn't even going to be starting in the final if it wasn't for Pedri getting injured in the quarters. So, and what he did in the semi-finals, brilliant touch and finish for his goal again yesterday. His footwork is unbelievable. He was excellent in that number 10 position, and yeah, as I said, fully deserving winners.
Yeah, and David, I mean, the final itself, it was a game that sort of ebbed and flowed. Obviously, Spain had far the better of it and dominated it, but it seemed to go in waves, and especially in and around when each team scored, they seemed to be coming out on top, but then they seemed to lose momentum then, and then the impetus seemed to be then taken by the opponent for another spell.
Yeah, I think the first half was probably not a lot of action, I suppose, goal mouth action, Spain dominating the ball. I think that even the first 10 minutes, like I had to actually look at the possession stats because I couldn't remember England actually having an attack. I think it was around the 10th minute that they got in near the Spanish box. While I expected Spain to dominate the ball, they really did just own it for particularly in that first half, and the first 10 minutes in particular. And while they did that, they weren't creating chances. And I think I said to friends at half time, I think England now looked the more likely maybe to score on the break because they were defending. John Stones in particular, a couple of 1v1s defended really, really well. But that changed totally as soon as the second half started. I think England probably felt with the lack of possession they needed to maybe press a little bit higher, and maybe that was their downfall because defensively they looked so good, and all of a sudden 2-3 minutes into the second half and Spain break away and Williams scores a brilliant finish from Yamal's pass. And I think Spain deserved, obviously, to go ahead just based on how much of the ball they had and how much they were dominating the game. But, England had been looking solid up to that point. And in any final and in that kind of situation, it does ebb and flow a little bit, because England they've no choice but to come out a little bit more and try and get an equaliser. And I think, like they have done, Conan's right. I think England have been poor generally in the tournament. They've obviously had the favourable draw, but the one thing they've done unbelievably well is come from behind. In every knockout game, they went behind. Even the Slovakia game, where it was the last kick, they come out of it and they win. They go behind against the Netherlands. So they were able to come back, and you just felt, look, they've done it before. Cole Palmer equalised, a brilliant strike from him. Someone who's done really well off the bench when he's come on. And it was the same, I think, when Spain played Germany. I felt when Germany got back into the game, Spain didn't appear to have such a strong bench, and I felt going later in that game, maybe they wouldn't be able to progress, but they pulled the result out in that one. And again, yesterday, they did the same. They're the ones getting the late chances and the late goal, and it was a brilliant winner. An excellent cross from Cucurella, who so many people have questioned. Someone put out a tweet, going to having a pop at Gary Neville today, because he said the reason Spain wouldn't go far was because Cucurella wasn't good enough. So he puts a brilliant ball in, and a clever finish from Rathabal to go and get the winner. And as I said, I didn't think Spain had options off the bench, but there's one who's come on in two big games and got massive goals to get them through. And delighted for Spain. I think overall they've won every game in the tournament. They've been brilliant in every game. They've gone the hard way. They've beaten Germany. They've beaten France. They've gone to the final, beaten England. So they're massively deserving winners.
Yeah, and
I think the most important. Sorry, Raf. I think the most important part of that game yesterday was when England, the 5 or 10 minutes after England scored, because I was with a couple of friends, and Spain had the ball, and they were like, attack. But Spain didn't want to attack. They just wanted to calm down and keep the ball for those 5-10 minutes so that it would break England's momentum. And they did that. They kept the ball for those 5-10 minutes, and England couldn't get the momentum to go on and push for that second goal. So that was a key spell for Spain after Cole Palmer, which was a great goal, after their equaliser, where everybody was calm. They kept the ball. England couldn't get it. And then Spain grew themselves back into the game and created more chances. So I think that was an important part of
what I loved about that, Conan, was actually it was Yamal at one point, who just turned 17, and he had his hands up saying, he got the ball wide, and people were sprinting for it. He said, calm down, at 17, obviously playing in years in Barcelona's academies, and he's the one who's saying, keep the ball here, calm down, we'll score a winner, take our time. And unbelievable from such a young kid to be leading the team like that.
Yeah, because it was only last summer, I remember ourselves and Graham Gartland here were talking about the Ireland under-17s playing in the Euros, and one of the players who scored against us, Lamine Yamal, who's lit up the tournament as a young player of the senior Euros as well. But the switch just after halftime as well, Conan, just wanted to bring that up, which Rodri goes off, and such a totemic figure for club and country. You would think that Spain would be vulnerable, but that seemed to be where England had a bit of a downfall with the press, at least according to the Athletic, where Bellingham seemed to press higher up, and it sort of left Luke Shaw a little bit vulnerable. And there were two chances, the first one of which ended up in a goal, where England seemed to get sucked in, and it left Nico Williams with a huge amount of space. So it's these little details that sometimes can change a game quite quickly.
Absolutely. And just on Luke Shaw, I actually thought he had a magnificent game in the final, considering he's had no real game time since his hamstring injury in February. But I think when Rodri went off, I think the English players are like, okay, if there's any Spanish player that we want taken off right now, it's Rodri. And he was. So there might have been a bit of cockiness maybe coming into the play when seeing Rodri. I certainly would have felt that, not cockiness, maybe just a bit more confident in the fact that we might get something out of this game now with Rodri gone. But Zubimendi is a fantastic footballer as well, and he showed that, always wanting the ball. There was a stage in 3 or 4 minutes after the goal, Spain's first goal, that he had the ball in around the centre circle, and he was just Cruyff turning it for a couple of minutes, and the English players couldn't get near him. But like you said, they did push higher up the pitch because David mentioned already that they needed to get higher up the pitch. They weren't in possession of the ball. They weren't creating any chances. So you do need to take risks. But ultimately, when you take risks against a Spanish side with the capabilities that they have in their team, you're going to be punished. And that's what happened 2-3 minutes into the second half. Again, Lamal with an extraordinary bit of play. Little step over from Momo, and wonderful finish by Williams, and literally could have scored again within 5 minutes when almost had a snapshot that just went wide again, coming in from that right hand side. So yeah, England were lucky that they did get back into the game, because the chances that Spain missed, again, Yamal missed two really good chances. Pickford made one good save, the other was straight at him. But yeah, the best team on the night won for sure, and a great goal to win the game.
Yeah, and I suppose, David, in terms of Southgate, he was speaking afterwards, and I think it's perfectly fair. He wanted to park all those questions about his future and where it goes. But there's a World Cup obviously in a couple of years. But where do you see it in terms of vindication for him in this tournament? He's been pilloried from pretty much the start of the tournament, yet this is the most consistent era England have ever had in terms of consecutive major tournaments, in terms of how far they've gone. And yet there's always a sense that there's more in them, especially in terms of performance levels.
Yeah, I mean, there's 24 teams in that tournament. Only one can win. I think every other manager is going to come in for some criticism. It's a really difficult one. I think if we, in the next week, we're going to see articles on both sides for Gareth Southgate. One will be highly critical of, the style of play, the defensiveness of the team, and not making the most of your talents that you have there. The other side is you look at his record against any other England manager, and it stacks up favourably. They've gone to consecutive Euros finals. I think semi-final in the World Cup, was it, or quarter-final? Yeah. Which they haven't done in a long, long time. So and a number of knockout wins, things like that. So it does, in terms of when you look at the statistics, it's certainly in his favour. I think if you took this as an isolated tournament, went through their performances one by one, you'd be finding it difficult to see real positives in it. Obviously, you get to a final and you can only beat the teams in front of you. But had they gone out to Slovakia in that last 16 game, it wouldn't have come as any great shock in how they were performing. So it's a really difficult one. I think probably my guess is it'll be the end of the road for him, just because the journey has been so long. And I think England fans, you saw the reaction after, I think it was the Slovakia game, where cups were being thrown on the pitch. If it didn't start well for him into the next campaign, I don't think he'd last particularly long. So I think he should leave on a high in a way. Obviously, they've lost the final, but his results overall, I think, have been excellent. And I think England should probably look for a fresh approach and go with somebody new. And if they want to go in attacking style, give it a shot and see, can you make the most of those young talents? I mean, Foden and Bellingham, they're still, I don't know what, Bellingham's 20 years of age or something. Like they've got a long way to go and a lot of talent in that squad. So it'll be interesting to see them under a new manager.
Yeah, and of course, it's Heimir Hallgrimsson's Ireland. It's the first opponent in September 7th here at the Aviva Stadium. And of course, Heimir Hallgrimsson, during his time as joint manager with Iceland, embarrassed England at Euro 2016. So perhaps if we from our point of view get a bit of that when September comes, that would be great. But I suppose before we turn to Hallgrimsson and the future under the new management, Conan, just where international football is going into the 2026 World Cup, which of course is expanded, and you've got a young Spain team that are now, that have the wind in their sails. You have England, who will probably remain competitive. I'm sure France will look to bounce back. The Copa America last night, which of course was delayed because of issues with people trying to get into the stadium. Argentina ended up winning it, but Lionel Messi is coming right towards the very end. Brazil are in a they're in a strange situation at the moment, where even in their qualifiers, they're sort of on that brink of, you're not 100% sure they would qualify. You would fancy them to. Where do you see, obviously a week is a long time in football, but in a 2-year spell between now and when the tournament kicks off in the US, Mexico and Canada, where do you see sort of the balance of power lying?
Well, you have to put Spain right up there now, considering their qualities at this Euros and the players that they have at their disposal as well. They're still a young team. You can't see anybody really leaving that side in the next 2 years. Going back to David's point on England as well, I think Southgate plays that formation because he doesn't trust his defence and goalkeeper, and I'd agree with that. I think that you can't go an all-attacking style like that with the defence that they have. I think that's why he set up that way. So it'll be interesting to see come September, if there is two new managers in the dugout at the Aviva Stadium, what way England will approach under a new manager. So that's very interesting. Again, France, they didn't perform at this tournament. They do have the capabilities and the players to be able to perform at the highest level. We've seen that over the last number of years. They certainly have the players. It just didn't go for them this season for whatever reason. I'm looking forward to seeing Uruguay, Raf, under Bielsa. I think I've been very impressed with them in Copa America, obviously defeating Brazil, and going out, unfortunately, in the semi-final stage. So yeah, because he only has them a little while, and another 2 years under his belt. I'd love to see. I'm looking forward to see how they get on. Colombia getting to the final as well. They did really well. Some really good players in that side. So yeah, I think it'll be a strong South American contingent heading to the World Cup in USA, Canada, Mexico. But so I think the winner's going to come from there, if I'm being completely honest.
Yeah, and now we're going to turn our attentions to Heimir Hallgrimsson and the Republic of Ireland. Of course, he's our new manager, and hopefully we're at the 2026 World Cup. Certainly, we hopefully will be at the Euros when we're due to be hosting games. It'll be quite depressing if we're not. But anyway, he's the former Iceland and Jamaica manager who was announced last Wednesday and introduced to the media and the Irish public in a press conference on Thursday. There were question marks about the timing of the announcement in light of the need to address the experiences relayed in the joint investigation by RTÉ Investigates and the Sunday Independent, and that is something that the FAI interim CEO David Carell addressed during the press conference on Thursday. So let's just listen to him.
While I'm very pleased to make this announcement, I do want to acknowledge that it is coming during a difficult week in which the association has been dealing with very serious allegations relating to historical abuse of women in Irish football. Please know our preference would have been to make this announcement at a different time, but due to a range of factors, we had to proceed today.
All right, so that is the FAI CEO David Carell there speaking at the press conference. Of course, that relates to the RTÉ Investigates and also in conjunction joint investigation with the Sunday Independent and Marie Crowe, my colleague Marie Crowe, and also Mark Tighe of the Sunday Independent, and it's relayed in the documentary RTÉ Investigates Girls in Green, which is on the RTÉ Player. And Conan, just I suppose on that in terms of the timing, Karen Duggan referred to it as tone deaf on the coverage ahead of the Ireland women's game against England. You concur with that?
100%, Raf. The timing was awful, and the range of factors, I don't really buy that either, considering what has gone on over the last 30 years in the association. But in terms of the 2-year investigation that Mark and Marie have done, to then announce that appointment within a couple of days of the programme, and also the upcoming women's game at Carrow Road against England, taking away all the media spotlight on the women's team as well for that game and for the France game as well. There was absolutely no need for it, and the range of factors certainly wouldn't outshine what the other issues were. They could have left it till Wednesday of this week, when the 2 games were finished, and give the girls the opportunity to enjoy the media spotlight that's put on them over the course of the 2 games against England and France. Páirc Uí Chaoimh as well. Huge first time soccer and women's soccer game has been held there. So it's I'd agree with Karen in terms of tone deaf, because it's just unacceptable, I think, for it to come out. Now, the other thing is that we have to be, the girls have a job to do, and they have to focus on the games in hand, and they did against England anyway. They put in a very good performance, and again against France. So they're not going to worry about it too much. But it's just in terms of the optics of it, Raf, it's just doesn't look good again.
Yeah, and then in terms of the optics of the process, David, for the actual naming of Hallgrimsson, because as we've, I think, during this podcast for the last 8 months since Stephen Kenny parted ways, there have been periods where the names were popping up all the time, and you felt, oh, this is getting closer. And then, there'd be Mark Hannam saying, there'd be an early April announcement. April came and went and nothing happened, and then it just rolled on. And then there were situations with John O'Shea coming in as interim manager for two windows. And Canham at the press conference last week, in terms of the process and the timeline, he said, we made that decision in March. We obviously communicated at that point that we hoped to make an appointment in early April. Heimir was one of those people that was under contract. We made the decision that Heimir was number 1 candidate. We hoped to conclude that process. It wasn't possible. Heimir was consistent all the way through true that he was committed to the CONCACAF Nations League and Copa America. The learning from us was that we shouldn't have communicated that we hoped to make an announcement at this point. So I suppose with hindsight, and now that we've seen what the end point looks like, what you make of the whole process, how it was managed, and particularly how it was communicated.
I think the biggest failing really was the communication. I think it's unusual to have waited so long to make an appointment, but if you consider the Copa America was coming this summer, the Euros were coming this summer, I think Mark Canham has spoken about the type of manager he wanted, that it was a hands-on manager, international experience, club experience. I think all of that was fine, and the manager they produced meets the the points that they were aiming, the targets they were aiming to get from a manager. So all of that is fine. I think obviously the communication that the appointment would be made in April was a mistake, and they've apologized for that. They've been upfront about it, that it was a mistake, and I think hopefully they'll learn from that. But I think in terms of it taking so long, I don't have an issue with that. Obviously, we would prefer to be in a position where whoever the manager was going to be would have had those friendlies to be with the team. But for me, it's about 2 years' time. It's about trying to qualify for a World Cup. And if Canham and the FAI felt the right decision was to get a manager, and they felt was going to be best place to do that, and that was going to take a little bit more time, then so be it. This isn't club football. It is international football. It doesn't mean you have to make an appointment that quickly. As I said, the communication clearly that it was going to be made in April was a mistake. Why that mistake was made? Maybe they didn't feel Jamaica were going to qualify for the Copa America, because I think that's an invitation thing, and they actually beat Canada to do that, who ended up finishing fourth. So maybe that was a surprise. I think everybody else felt it was a surprise because they thought it was going to be Sagnon. They thought he was going to lose to Greece. And so whatever the mistake was, it was a mistake. But I think in the long term, to have waited was probably the right decision from my perspective, looking at it. I was critical that if they ended up with O'Shea after all the things Canham had said in terms of who they wanted and what they were aiming for, that would have been a bit of a disaster, I think, from the FAI's point of view. So now that they produced a manager that meets the criteria they set, we can't be too critical. We can certainly be critical of how it was communicated over the past 6 or 7 months. And the number of names that popped up, that's not really the FAI's issue. That's, journalists wanting to have stories about different people, and maybe many of them were interviewed. But in the end, I think it's all about 2 years' time. And from my point of view, looking at it now, is it a good appointment? I think it is. He's done well with Iceland. He's reasonable results with Jamaica. He's, as Canham said, he's improved rankings for international teams. And so we have to get behind Heimir. And I think in the long run of it all, it's a good appointment. And I think the FAI were right to take their time.
Yeah, and in his initial interview, just before he appeared at the press conference last Thursday, he spoke to my colleague, Dave Kelly, and the word going back to basics came up a lot, both in the interview and also in the press conference. Let's just listen to a snippet of that.
In terms of the squad you are coming in to work with, how would you assess what we are, or where we are at the moment?
I think what I saw in the recent 4 friendlies, and again, I haven't seen many, so I've seen maybe 5, 6 matches. I think what has the steps taken in these friendlies were correct. So it was more maybe direct, more compact way. So we should always start from there, if I can say from the basics. But we start from being compact, being solid, and then we go forward. For the attack, that will always be the most challenging for national team coaches, because we have so limited time with the players to build a good attacking game. But it's quicker, and is necessary to have a good organized defensive game, and then solutions, who we are playing, how we go forward. But I think the team is taking the right steps, and I think with building on what has been done is necessary just for the development's sake.
All right, so that full interview is on the RTÉ Sport YouTube channel. We'll have another clip from it that relates to another aspect of the Irish game a little bit later on. But Conan, listening to what he has to say there, what do you read into it?
I don't know. Look, I've said it before and I'll say it again. You need players to be able to compete or to go and get yourself qualified to a World Cup. And if he is able to do that, Raf, with his current group of players, we should be offering him a 5-10 year contract, because I really don't see us being able to qualify for a World Cup with the players that we have and where they're playing their trade. I think I mentioned last time I was on with you, Raf, that I think there was one player in the midfield and strike force that played in the Premier League. The rest were in the Championship or playing in Scottish Premier League maybe. And that's going to be very difficult to transfer that then into a World Cup squad, and that's the challenge that he'll have. Yes, we can be compact. Yes, we can get back to basics and be a bit more direct. But at the end goal, and like we've all talked about before, is results, and that's what he judged on. And as I said, if he gets us to a World Cup, it'll be an unbelievable success story. And like David says, it'll be worth the wait, because that doesn't bother me either in terms of how long it's taken. 231 days, I think, from when Stephen Kenny left until Heimir came in. So that doesn't bother me. What bothers me is the international results, how we play, but ultimately getting to big major tournaments. Being honest, I can't see it happening for the next decade. But if he's able to do that, well then he's done an outstanding job. So I wish him well.
Yeah, and of course we've heard from him, but also he obviously has a past history within the game at international level. One of the reasons he's been brought in with Iceland and also with Jamaica. But last Friday I was speaking to Jóhann Ingi Hafþórsson from Morgunblaðið, a newspaper journalist, sports journalist for them, about his tactics. So this is just a bit of a detailed explanation of what to expect based on his past history.
It's actually, the 4-4-2 thing was more of a loud back thing, in my opinion, because after Heimir fully took over, he started experimenting with different tactics. He had 4-3-3, 4-4-5-1
as well.
Yeah, and 4-4-1-1 with an attacking midfielder behind the striker. In Russia, the tactics were a bit. I mean, he adapts to the opponent and he adapts to the player he has. But with Lauback, it was 4-4-2 nothing. But that worked. If you have two very hard-working strikers, that works very well. But yeah, 4-4-2 was more of a Lauback thing, while Heimir is more adaptive.
Yeah, and there wouldn't be a fear of parking the bus, because I was, I think, as I told you prior to our interview, I remember interviewing Kári Arnason, your centre back from the Euro 2016 run, when there was a friendly here in Dublin back in 2017, and he used the term "park the bus," and also that, you know, Iceland played to their strengths, and they didn't apologise for the style of play either. So I guess Hallgrimsson, in terms of set pieces particularly, which was I think a facet, the long throw against England when you famously beat them in 2016, and then I think there was a game against Austria where it was a similar tactic. Set pieces are going to be a huge thing that we're going to sort of experience from the way he manages the team.
Oh, absolutely, and be happy out of possession as well. Be comfortable out of possession. The wingers were basically second fullbacks when they were defending, and the defending starts with the front two, really. And of course, set pieces. I hope you have a good long thrower. It's going to work. Yes, set piece is huge. And if I remember correctly, this friendly against Ireland, I think it ended 1-0, and the goal came from a free kick, so directly from a set piece. So, and also what he said, I think it was on the press conference, he said there's a lot of similarities with Irish people and Icelandic people. So he believes that what worked with the Icelandic team can work with the Ireland team as well, because they have similar mentalities. So that could help.
Certainly help if it works. But you know, looking at that, David, and then if we park back to the direction Stephen Kenny was trying to take the team and trying to make it a bit more progressive and more reflective of the modern game, this is obviously not a continuity in a sense if it's following on from what Hafþórsson told me on Friday.
Yeah, that probably is the one aspect of, I was talking about the criteria that Conan set out. I think that was probably one that he did set out. You know, if we'd gone, for example, I think we would say the prime target would have been Carsley from day one. I think he would have had a slightly different approach, but I think it probably came down to the limited options that were there for Ireland to take on, and it'll be interesting because I'd like to know how the conversations went between the FAI and Hallgrimsson in terms of, was there any discussion on how they want him to play? Obviously, there's been a lot of talk through all the age groups in the FAI. They're trying to play in a particular way, and obviously Stephen would have been the kind of spear front for that in the last number of years. But whether we go back to the more traditional style of a defensive shape and trying to score from set pieces, and look, I think that is a massive part of international football anyway. You see so many goals from set pieces, and I think what Hallgrimsson said, he's not in the first interview you played, it's nothing groundbreaking to hear him say, we don't have that much time with the players, we need to work on our defensive shape, we need to be solid, and we can work on attacking things when that's all right. I think that's probably standard fare for international football and what we've seen for years and years. So it will be interesting to see if we are a back to basics team, or whether the FAI are pushing them to be a little bit more just a little bit more football involved and trying to play a little bit more as well. But as Conan's pointed out, and I think I said previously, it's going to be about results ultimately, and the Irish fans will get behind them from the get-go. And if we start with a positive result against England, even if we don't, the following 2 games against Greece and who's the other game?
Finland is the other.
Finland, yeah, sorry. I think that we'll get right behind them, and hopefully we can see some positive results and a better qualifying campaign this time around.
Yeah, and we need a sort of Megan Campbell style long thrower from the sounds of it as well, or find where Rory Delap is at the moment and bring him out of retirement and just give him one job, stand on the sideline and rocket those in. But one of the other things he talked about in, I think it was in the embargoed section of his press conference, Conan, was the idea of having a home-based squad, so based around League of Ireland players that would be played outside international windows, which essentially, because of our domestic calendar, will be December, January. It's something he's done before with Iceland. I think he also mentioned he tried that out with Jamaica as well. What do you think? What do you make of that? Do you see it as a positive? Are there League of Ireland players within the league currently who are maybe on the crux of it, maybe of being close enough, maybe a Neil Farrugia or something like that?
First of all, yeah, pity Trapattoni didn't do this, Dave, a few years ago, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it's obviously great for the League of Ireland players to get that recognition. She's at this moment in time, Raf, I'm trying to think about 1 or 2 players that could possibly break in and be a regular in the start in the Irish team. I'm struggling. Farrugia, absolutely, he's been dogged with injuries. Seems to have come around now and is performing well. So yeah, maybe Farrugia, like Brian Maher maybe as well in goal with Derry. But you've got a lot of very good goalkeepers ahead of him. So yeah, I do like the exercise though. I've seen what it's give League of Ireland players the chance to show what they can do at international level. Because we haven't got that before. Sporadic players have done it. Glenn Crowe, Jack Byrne, Jason Byrne over the years, but they all seem to be able to throw on the Irish jersey when they go across the water and perform well. So why not try it out while they're still playing domestic football? I know, like the likes of, he's left now, but Gavin Malloy would have been a good one to look at. There's been talk about Mark Coyle as well. A lot of players, a lot of fans thinking that he could make the step up. But the step up between League of Ireland football and international football is vast. So yeah, I think it's great. Really optimistic about it. But what we'll gain from it will be just experience for our own players playing in our league, rather than seeing players from our league get international football in qualifying games.
Yeah, and the other thing he commented on as well was, and it was something kind of slipped through in the interview with Dave, so this is the second clip we're bringing from the interview with Hallgrimsson. It's more about Irish players looking beyond England and opening their doors to the continent as well. He seems quite keen on that, and also he kind of touches on the LOI in this clip as well. So let's just listen to that.
I think the possibilities are everywhere here. I think tapping into the European market as well, for players to go abroad to Europe, to Italy, to France, to Spain or wherever, that is something I think we should look more into here, rather than everybody is looking to England. And then now the league in itself, with improving the league, with more homegrown players staying in Ireland, I think the league will improve rapidly. and for the national team to have a younger players play in the league will also benefit the national teams.
And I suppose, David, coincidentally then a few days later, Troy Parrott, who was already on loan at Excelsior last season and had a really good time in the Netherlands, then he's had a move to AZ Alkmaar, confirmed an 8 million move on Saturday, and a real chance of getting minutes as well. I think they've given him the number 9 shirt. I don't know how much you can read into, you know, a shirt number for that, but they've sold their top scorer, Angelos Pavlidis, who'd scored 33 goals in all competitions last season. So there is a space there, but I don't know that an international manager will be able to influence influence where players end up going club level, especially if it involves moving countries. But do you look at it as encouraging anyway, that perhaps we should be going down that route, given the Brexit issues for the younger players, but also the English leagues? It's becoming harder for our players, and we've seen this over the last decade or so, to break into the Premier League, and even the Championship is getting a bit more difficult.
Yeah, I saw a good piece the other day on Twitter with Dan McDonald just speaking to 2 young Irish players in Hoffenheim. And it was interesting because, I think, I don't know what age the lads were, maybe 16, 17. But it was interesting to see their life over there and making that move, obviously, with the sort of not being able to move to England as easily at that age. And the setup over there, the quality of the pitches, the quality of the training, the structures that they have in terms of really wanting their academy players to come through to their senior team, and the amount of staff that they have at academy level that we don't have here. You know, the number of staff for the academy teams in Hoffenheim was probably, I think, was way above what we have in the whole of the country here. So I think that is beginning to happen naturally. I don't know how much power Heimir will have to make that happen, but I think that is going to start to happen with younger players, and that's no harm to see the amount of football they're going to get at that young age. You know, they were speaking about training 5 times a week, whereas here, you know, if you're getting 3 evenings a week, you're doing well. So I think that environment for players will be brilliant, and hopefully experiencing not just English football but other cultures will bring on our players in terms of their technical level, watching how the Spanish team plays versus the English team. There's no harm in having our young players spread out across Europe. And it's a brilliant, speaking about Parrott, it's a brilliant move for him. He's obviously had a good end of season with Excelsior, and they were relegated, I believe, so to stay in the top division of the Dutch league. And AZ are obviously a big side there, so it's a big move, and hopefully it works out for him, because if he's confident in scoring goals there, I'm sure he'll feature heavily for Ireland. So it is good to see players outside of the English market, I think, and playing abroad, and it can only go to help the national team to have those experiences amongst the squad. Yeah,
and if the likes of Parrott start doing well, it will probably encourage some of the other younger players coming through, that there's a whole world out there in terms of football on the continent, and it doesn't have to be the Premier League. But anyway, I'm sure we'll be hearing about Heimir and from him over the next couple of months before we face England at the Aviva Stadium. But the Ireland women's team were playing England in the 5th Euro qualifier in this very daunting group that they have, and they lost 2-1 at Carrow Road. And let's listen to Denise O'Sullivan, who was the player of the match from an Irish perspective, and also to manager Eileen Gleeson.
How much of a boost will that goal at the end give the whole squad?
Yeah, it's a massive goal. I know we lost the game, but look, we can take the positives from it, and that goal will stand to us going into the next game.
How good was Julianne when she came on? She gave such energy to the press.
Yeah, Julie never lost it. She was excellent when she came onto the pitch. She brought in fresh legs, she gave us energy, and she got us a very important goal in the end as well.
Now, unfortunately, we went behind so early and we needed to do a bit of reorganisation. How was that for us?
Yeah, look, those 2 goals were definitely preventable, but look, we keep our heads up, and we kept going. We fixed the press in about 20 minutes into the game, and we got organised again, and we continued to continue to attack. And look, when you put on this green jersey, it's very important to give 100%, and I'm so honoured to play for this team, and we just keep on pushing.
And Eileen, that goal at the end by Julianne, how important might that be yet in terms of the seeding we've been talking about?
It's huge, and you know, that's what we spoke all week about, the value of goals. Obviously we conceded an early goal, which is what we didn't want to do and had a bit of a shaky start. But I think once we got into it, the girls put in a great shift, and to keep going till the 94th minute, the goal is huge for us. Obviously, we know we're in that race with Poland, who lost today. So yeah, the goal difference is huge. So a very, very important goal.
The substitutions all played a part in the end. The throw from Megan, the flick on from Louise, obviously Julianne getting the touch, but the energy that she brought, and Leanne, was that something that Dave had told you about?
Yeah, no, it wasn't dated. This time it was our eyes. I think we thought in the first half, that we weren't really offering enough up top. We probably got into good positions 2 or 3 times in the first half, and then the final quality wasn't good enough. But yeah, I think Leanne and Julianne had a huge impact when they came on. They gave us the runs, they were energetic, they hassled, harassed, so that they were really positive changes. I thought Aoife Mannion was solid, and then Megan came on, and obviously the throw helps. But yeah, the work rate right till the end was really commendable from the girls.
So that is Eileen Gleeson, their manager, and also Denise O'Sullivan, player of the match, speaking to Tony O'Donoghue there at Carrow Road after that 2-1 defeat. And we'll hear from Julianne Russell very shortly. But Conan, just in terms of how Ireland played overall, in and out of possession before the goal that they're referencing there right at the very end by Galway United's Julianne Russell, what did you make of the performance?
Raf, I wasn't particularly pleased with the first half performance. I think Eileen said it there. Emily Murphy up front with Amber Barrett, they got into very good positions. Amber specifically, who had a wonderful opportunity to score in the first half, didn't take it. I just think we don't shoot enough, Raf. Like, there was plenty of times where we get the ball in possessions, and we're afraid to break the lines. We keep going backwards and trying to keep the ball, and that's important playing against teams like England. Littlejohn and Ag in the middle, they were kept going backwards with the ball when there was space to play in and play forward passes. Jess Sue was energetic as usual, like you get from her, but the substitutions made a huge difference. Julianne was playing on the shoulder, was caught offside a bit, and I actually was watching it with my father, and he was like, "She's getting caught offside too many times." And I said, "Well, one is going to work out for her," and one did, and it was the goal. So it was and a wonderful little touch to put it past Hampton in the goal. So it was a great performance from Ireland in terms of getting that goal, because it's vital, because of as Eileen said there, it's important that we beat Poland to get that seeded spot for qualifying for the playoffs. So and they play Iceland on Tuesday, and we need to better their scoreline and hope Iceland win. Poland are at home, obviously. So for anybody watching the Irish girls on Tuesday, have a look, keep an eye on that Poland-Iceland game kicking off at 6:00. So, but yeah, Katie McKay being back in the squad now on Tuesday as well will be a big plus for us. Interesting to see who she starts up front. Does she go with Leanne and Julianne from the start this time against France, or do we keep that defensive shape going? We haven't been hammered in any games against England, Sweden, or France. We've been competitive in all 5 games so far, and I'd like to think that will continue going into the 6th game, and hopefully Iceland pick up a great result against Poland.
Yeah, and then the France game, it's at Páirc Uí Chaoimh down in Cork. So live on RT2 and RT Player from 5:30 p.m. on Tuesday, so tomorrow evening. And then just before we listen to Julianne Russell, just what that goal actually means. It's so it boosts Ireland's overall ranking status, which of course feeds into the playoff seeding system. So Ireland have to stay again ahead of Poland, as Conan has just said there, in the rankings to ensure they hold on to seeded status, provided they get through the playoff semis against a League C team. That would improve their hopes of getting a kinder draw in the playoff final. So the goal difference at the moment, Ireland have a goal difference of -8. That goal helping to help create a little bit of a buffer, because Poland have a goal difference of -12, and of course, as Conan said, they're playing Iceland in their final game, so all eyes will be on that. And Julianne Russell herself, she is highly experienced. She's been having a great season for Galway United, but it's her first cap in 4 years, coming on as a half-time sub, and of course getting the goal. But she was also speaking to Tony O'Donoghue afterwards.
I believe that goal was for baby Rosie.
It sure was. It was very emotional afterwards. Obviously, she's at home, and I can't wait to see her tomorrow and give her a big hug and a kiss.
She's the first baby in the Irish camp, I believe.
She is. She had an absolute super time in Castleknock, and she didn't make the trip to England, but she'll be back into camp tomorrow down in Cork.
What a difference you made, though, at half time. I mean, you ran like a hare.
Yeah, I enjoy running and I enjoy pressing them, and I think that's what we needed to do. And obviously disappointed with the loss, but I think the goal is vital for the seedings.
How did you feel? I mean, you haven't played since 2020, and to come up with a goal against the European champions.
Yeah, look, so I suppose since having Rosie, I actually feel fitter and stronger since coming back from mat leave. Feeling good, and just want to give Anthony to this team, and it's been so welcoming since coming back, and I'm just having the time of my life at the moment.
So Julianne Russell there. Of course, the playoffs are in October, which is, of course, where Irish eyes will be looking. But the draw itself, it's this Friday, the 19th. So it's going to be of huge importance, and because that is, anyway, the route that Ireland will have to go down anyway, mathematically. There's not a question about that. Now, just before we turn to the League of Ireland clubs in Europe, also to note the Ireland under-19s are also in Euro action in Lithuania, the women's team. By the time you'll have listened to this, they'll have played Spain live on the RTÉ News channel and the RTÉ Player, but they played Germany on Thursday, and then the Dutch on Monday in their remaining group games. So while the Irish women's senior team are, have made huge progress in recent times, there's a generation that are obviously following on as well. But we're going to turn to the League of Ireland clubs in Europe, and Shamrock Rovers went to Iceland last Tuesday and drew 0-0 with Vikingur. Although they went down to 10 men with about 10 minutes to go, with Darren Nugent getting sent off. And then afterwards, Stephen Bradley, speaking to RTÉ Sport, said, really happy. I think the players were really disciplined in how they played. They worked really hard. They fought for each other. We should win the game in the end. When you look at Johnny's two chances, and that's Johnny Kenny, the performance was really good, slightly different to our normal game, but really good. They score a lot of goals, and we didn't give up one shot on target, which was really, really pleasing. We knew we'd have to defend something from those corners, but we defended them really well. Overall, we nullified what they did, and we should win the game. And it ties into what Keith Tracy was saying before the game of trying to make it an attritional, difficult game and try and get something to come home to Tala. But the Icelandic journalist that we played a little bit earlier on, Jóhann Ingi Hafþórsson, he was covering the game for his newspaper, Morgunblaðið, and this is his reflection on the game before we ourselves discuss it.
I was talking to my colleagues in the press box before the game, and they were very confident. They were absolutely sure Vikingur was going to win this game after seeing Shamrock last year, because this Viking team is better than the Breiðablik team from 1 year ago. So they were absolutely certain that they would win this game. And if you look at the game, Viking could control the game. They had, 70% of the ball, something like that. So it was a bit of a disappointment, but still, we're from Iceland. We're not supposed to win teams from Ireland. And if you turn it around, a club like Shamrock Rovers, they don't think they should be losing against an Icelandic side. But I mean, I don't forget that I'm from Iceland, so I didn't think we should have won the game, but still a bit disappointed if you look at how the game was played. But Shamrock was very defensive, 11 men behind the ball, but still they got the best chance to win the game. Johnny Kenny was through on goal. So I don't know, it was probably a fair result. But I think the second leg will be very different. Shamrock will play more attacking football at home, and they should be favourites from now on after getting a draw away from home.
But as you say, with Shamrock Rovers opening up a little bit and not being as defensive as they were away from home, do you feel it plays a little bit into the hands of the type of players Vikingur have, that there might be a bit more space sort of behind the Shamrock Rovers defence, and I suppose gaps between midfield and defence?
I'm not sure. They're not used to playing teams like that, because here in Iceland they control the possession usually, and they like to have the ball. They like to take the short passes and keep the ball. So it's not really their thing to play counterattacks. The wingers are quite pacey, but the number 9 is a big target man. So I'm not sure playing counter-attacking football is not really their style. So it will be interesting how it will go.
All right, so that full interview, it's on the RTÉ Sport YouTube channel, and also it's available wherever you get your podcast. But David, just, from your own experiences of playing, in European ties and getting through the rounds, like for Shamrock Rovers, of course, great, you could say a fairly good result away from home in Iceland, and at least they're bringing something back to build on in Tala. But is the best policy really to just almost play the exact same game, remain as defensive, or do you have to chase it just because you're at home a little bit more?
Yeah, I think it's probably Rovers' form going into the game. I think Bradley obviously felt we need to go over and shut up shop a wee bit over here and try and bring a positive result home. And it's easy to be critical that, as you've covered there, that they didn't have a huge amount of possession of the ball. They probably happy to give that up, and I would expect a very different game next week. That said, I don't think they'll be overly expansive. They obviously rate this opposition. They were obviously stung last year by Breidablik. So I don't think Rovers are going to underestimate the opposition that they're playing. And I didn't see the game live. I've just seen the highlights back, and I think even listening to Hallgrimsson talking about Vikingur, he was sort of saying they're an aerial threat, and looking at the highlights, it certainly looked like that. So I think Rovers probably expected that, defended their box really, really well, limited them to aerial chances that on the night, look, they could have nicked one of those. A couple of them went close, but Poles made one or two good saves, and in the end, on the counter attack, they could have scored. There's a couple of chances for Johnny Kenny on the break, but yeah, I would expect a totally different game. I think Rovers will try to be more possession based and keep the ball and take the game to Vikingur at home in Tala. And as Bradley said after the game, if they get a big support, look, I think they need it. They need this result. They need to try and win this tie after the current league campaign that they're having. Financially, it would make a big difference to go and win the tie. Much, much greater chance to go and qualify even for the conference group stage. If you win this round, you're at least have a playoff for that. So it's a massive game, and I think they found last year, what a big disappointment it was to lose to Breidablik. They don't want to make that mistake again. But I think considering the form Rovers are in, I think they probably approached the game in the right way. And when you look at the result, I'm sure we'll go on to it, that Derry have had away from home. It's not easy to go and get a result away from home. Teams go up a level. Like I found that we played away in Iceland before, and the quality of the opposition, we played at home first for Dundalk against IH, and we thought we drew 1-0 with a sloppy goal. We thought these aren't great. Over there was just a different kettle of fish. They're a much superior team at home. So I think if the similarities there, Rovers will be confident they can go through, but I certainly don't think they'll be underestimating them yet.
Yeah, because Derry City, Conan, I think the template for them is fairly obvious what they have to do at home. Losing 2-0 away at Bruno's Magpies last Thursday in the Conference League first qualifying round, and their second half goals, Ash Taylor about 4 minutes after the break, and then Francisco Zuniga adding another after 82 minutes. Really poor performance from Derry in that leg, and putting pressure on themselves. And just before we get your thoughts on it, Rory Higgins, when he's speaking to Derry now, he said the goals we give away are completely unacceptable. We had opportunities in the game, but to concede goals like that is completely unacceptable, and it's an unacceptable result off the back of it. Many unacceptables in there, and I think most people would agree.
Yeah, I think so. But the same thing is that like I was looking back over some stats over the last number of years. Like we've a 25% win rate in Europe over the last 3 or 4 years, Raf, and I think we just go out expecting, it's a Gibraltar team. We should beat these, and yeah, we should. But at the same time, we've got to remember that a lot of these players have grown up in Spanish academies and are very comfortable on the ball and possession based. They're lacking fitness at the moment, so you'd expect us to dominate the ball in terms of and wear the opponents down. But even take Shells, for example, on defeating St. Joseph's 2-1. Fortunate with a penalty in the second half. It doesn't happen like that. An Irish side is very unlikely to go and win 3-4-0 in Europe, be it home or away. So I think we underestimate teams when we play them in Europe as a nation. Shamrock Rovers did it last year with Breidablik when they went to Tala and defeated them 1-0 very comfortably. And again with Derry this season, heading over there and expecting to win against Magpies, and it just doesn't happen. It doesn't work that way. The team that won the Gibraltar League have Lincoln Redhams. They've won 1-0 in their first leg, and have a wonderful chance of going through to the second qualifying round of the Champions League, which again, like David says, will give them a wonderful chance of getting into the group stages. So the Gibraltar League isn't as bad as what people make out to be. They're good sides in the league. As I said, they're very good players. They mightn't have the tactical prowess or awareness that we may have in League of Ireland. But take nothing away from the players. They're good players. And you're going to have to be at the top of your game to get through around in Europe. You cannot turn up and give 90% in a game and get through. You have to give 100%. And Derry City obviously didn't do that. But to go over and expect to win, strong attitude.
Yeah, I think the graph just the 2 goals that they gave up, I think is what would really, I think that's the reason for all the unacceptables, like a corner and a wide free kick, and just defended so badly from Derry. And I think it's kind of been a bit of an Achilles heel. Watching the Sligo game last week, the kind of goal, the second goal they give up is so bad. And you just can't afford to like predict whatever about your own league in Europe. You just can't. Like, if Derry played reasonably well on the night, if they went and drew it all, as Conan said, wins don't come easy in Europe. And if you go away and draw it all, whoever it's against, whatever league, whatever country, you'd be pretty happy you're going to come home and do the job. The goals they gave up were just horrendous. And, I'd be concerned it's going to cost them. I think they'll probably win the game at home, but a 2-0 lead to overturn, even looking at the Shells game, they should have won that game 2-0. The goal they conceded, they're a little bit unlucky. It's just flicked off from a corner, flicked off the front man. It's rebounded off a Páirc. That can happen on the night. Derry could be a 2-0 win next week, and just an unlucky goals in it. You just can't afford to give the goals they did away. And from Murray Higgins' point of view, that would be the biggest disappointment, because, as I said, they didn't play terribly on the night. It's just terrible goals that they gave away.
Yeah, and then Shelbourne, they won their tie, as mentioned there. They beat St. Joseph's 2-1. Mark Hoyle with a very early goal. Javi Powell equalising with just before half-time, 5 minutes before the break. And then Will Jarvis scoring what was the winner in the 58th minute with a penalty. Now, Damien Duff was speaking to RTÉ's Oisín Coyne afterwards. So let's just listen to him here.
Damien, European nights back at Shells and a 2-1 victory here this evening. Your thoughts on the match and the performance?
A very special night for the club. Everyone's involved with the club. Knowing what we know now, I know everyone's saying, can you get a bigger cushion going across there? Here, they're a technical team. They're very well organised, hard to break down. So brilliant win. I'm so proud of the players, and we absolutely can't wait for next week already.
You mentioned the occasion. Obviously, the fans showed that this evening, but Mark Coyle, especially in midfield, and that early goal was a huge part of this game.
Yeah, it was an amazing start to the game, amazing return to European football. 18 years and you score within 25 seconds. So fabulous, and really pleased for Mark.
You touched on it there about maybe extending the lead. Was there a sense of frustration in the second half, because you created a lot of chances but just couldn't hit the back of the net?
Yeah, but I guess it's about staying calm, and what we said at half time, reset button, we've given away a disappointing goal, and can we go win the second half? And we did that. So listen, you'll hear a lot, can you got a bigger margin than we actually did. But like I said, when you look at Derry's results tonight, it shows how tough these games are.
Okay, Damien Duff there, and of course an emotional first leg for Shelbourne fans, Conan, because of how long it's been since the club was in Europe, and there was a huge amount of build-up, especially on social media. I think part of their social media team, Darren Cleary, put together quite a nice video in the build-up to it. But this first leg at least owed a lot to Will Jarvis, and they've got probably a nervy, as you said, with not to underestimate Gibraltar, aside from Gibraltar. There's going to be a slightly nervous second leg to come this Thursday.
Yeah, absolutely, especially after Derry's travels last week in Gibraltar too against the Bruno Magpies. So yeah, you're expecting Chelsea to go out and not lose the game. Obviously a draw will put them through, and I think Damien Duff will take that now, grab it with both hands. And I think, because like I said before, I think we're a bit ignorant when it comes to European games, when we're playing against smaller nations, that we think that we can just go out and win the games. It just doesn't happen like that. And but when Shells are in a position like they're in at the moment, they can afford to be a little bit more defensive and ask St. Joseph's to see if they can break us down, which they may find difficult to do. So yeah, but going back to the atmosphere at the game, it's been a long time coming, 18 years, like I said, since Shells have competed in Europe, and they've gone through so much in the meantime, and relegations, promotions, takeovers, players, fans, a lot of new people have entered Talca Park, and it's great to see it packed to the rafters again. Brings me back to my youth when I was a supporter there and on the Riverside. So it's great to see it. long may it continue. And hopefully there'll be another round of Europe to play for next in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah, and Hallgrimsson, I think he was visible in the crowd there as well. That was one of the games he took in. The other game that he also took in was Bows against Sligo Rovers, and Sligo on a roll now, winning 2-0 at Dalymount Park on Friday, and then Dundalk beaten Drogheda 4-2 in the Louth derby. Although we'll talk about the matters that happened just after the full time whistle as well, and then Galway United beaten Waterford in the battle of the newly promoted teams that have both been having really good seasons. But I suppose first, David, on Dundalk, brilliant result for them in terms of trying to work their way away from that bottom spot. Now they've opened a 5-point gap over Drogheda United, and there's a lot of things we can talk about. Ryan O'Kane's finish for the second goal, or the build-up play for Darrell Horgans for the third, but sadly overshadowed by the post-match scenes, one has to say. And on Garda Síochána did confirm to us 3 people were arrested following that, but unfortunately that has to be talked about, despite the fact that the game itself was really good from a Dundalk perspective, but probably just great as a game as well.
Yeah, I went up to the game on Friday. Certainly got value for money. A great game from Dundalk's perspective, probably not so much from Drogheda's, but yeah, for Dundalk, I think to score 4 goals after the season they've had, where goals have been hard to come by. At home, it's generally been solid defensive displays that have helped them kind of come from the bottom of the table and overtake Drogheda. And the other night was just some brilliant attacking football, some great goals. Jada Kiki's come in from Shells and looks very lively, really tidy on the ball, some smart turns, some smart play, and he gets the opening goal. And yeah, I thought that the experienced lads in the team, the Bensons, Horgan, John Mountney, all really solid and vocal in the middle of the park. Just those lads really helping the younger lads who've come in, because that back four, for example, that has kept so many clean sheets at home, it was a totally new back four the other night. Andy Boyle out injured, and the other 3, Archie Davis, Bradshaw, Johnson, have all left. So John Daly's had a tough job this window to try and bring in 8-9 players, which is really difficult with such a short end to the season. So from his perspective, Dundalk's perspective, a brilliant result. From Drogheda's, it's looking harder and harder for them now to try and stay afloat, and they'll really need to try and kick on to keep hold of Dundalk. And I think it's important to talk about the game. The stuff at the end was, I haven't seen anything like it from my perspective, being at a game, either as a player or a fan, to see. I think there was probably 20 odd Drogheda fans just jump the wall. I mean, and go trying to run to the shed to get at Dundalk fans. And obviously 1 or 2 Dundalk fans didn't take that too lightly, so came onto the pitch. But it was just madness. I mean, the police took minutes to get out onto the pitch to stop it. 1 or 2 stewards tried their best, but it ruined what was a fantastic night for Dundalk, because from the club's perspective, I don't feel they could do much more in terms of the stewards were there. They tried their best, but they can't hold back 20 or 30 fans breaking across the pitch to try and taunt and start a fight. So unsightly scenes, but from the players' perspective, they'll be delighted with their night's work and to be pushing away from the bottom of the table.
Yeah, and
it looked pre-planned as well. Sorry, it looked pre-planned in the sense that that it was decided before the final whistle that, look, we're going to make a run for this and get over there, which was awful to see. So and looking, and Saturday, or well, it's meant to be Friday, but looking like the game is going to go ahead on Saturday, the FAI Cup game between Drogheda and Dundalk. What I'm worried about is what it's going to be like outside the stadium, in terms of most of the Drogheda United supporters, they would park in the hospital overflow car park, and some away supporters might come in that side of the ground as well. So there has to be some segregation in terms of the supporters, because that can't happen again. And there'll need to be a lot of police presence in Drogheda on either Friday or Saturday.
Yeah, I'm sure there certainly will be. And of course, Conan Sligo, on the other hand, on a roll now. They had some 2 really good wins against Derry City and then Shamrock Rovers as well. And then, they go up to Bows and they make it 3 in a row. Ellis Chapman kind of at the centre of a lot of it. We might talk about the goal at the end, but also the pass for Waweru for the opener was brilliant. And then from the other hand as well, I suppose if you want to talk to us about Bows, and there's a lot of changes to their squad, but they're struggling in terms of results. Dawson Devoy, it looks like might be coming in to bolster things. They look like they've a striker coming in as well. Aidan Keena potentially has been linked with them as well. So there's a huge amount of turnover, but so far results aren't following.
No, look, let's start with Sligo and Tommy Gorman looking down on his Sligo club favourably. 3 wins in 15 points, possible 21 over the last 7 games. So great return for John Russell's side. But I think the 3 in midfield, Morahan, Mali and Chapman are the key players for them. Morahan in particular, he's learned a lot from Greg Bulger in that role in terms of the 6, and has put himself in as probably one of the better 6s in the league this season. He's been outstanding. And with Chapman and Mali, the creative players, the technical players that are able to change a game. And we saw that with Chapman with the weight of pass for Waru's goal was outstanding. Now, goalkeeper didn't cover himself in glory either with the way he came out, and he was able just to knock it by him and slot it in. But even when they went down to 10 men, Stephen Mallon, poor from him getting a second yellow for obviously pullback in his own half, 75 yards away from his own goal. It was really poor from Mallon getting sent off in that situation. But to go the rest of the game and have plenty more chances, Raf, to get 2 or 3 goals. Simon Power had a wonderful opportunity. He went through 1-on-1 in the 80th minute to make it 2-0. But Ed McGinty in the Sligo Rovers goal, along with the Sligo defenders, Pynaker in particular, they were absolutely outstanding. They were really, really good. Goal line clearances, great saves, and culminates then in the goalkeeper going up for a last minute free kick. And Declan McDade putting in the worst cross of a ball you'll ever see, allowing Chapman then to slot in from halfway. So yeah, it was a wonderful victory for Sligo. A great night for the Russells in terms of John winning for Sligo and Julianne scoring against England. And a great role that they're on at the moment. But with Bohs, I think that's no win in 6 now. They're top. They've scored 1 goal in the last 3 games. I think it was a penalty. Dale Rooney scored a penalty. I mentioned before at the start of the season that Kintunde doesn't score enough goals for me. He's their central striker. So with Aidan Keena potentially coming in, it's a big sign for them. A player that will score goals, that can score goals in this league. I know Sligo Rovers are looking at him as well. And with Dawson Devoy coming in for that bit of creative spark, it's what they need. They need creativity in that area because they're not scoring enough goals, and it's obvious to see. So yeah, it all depends on incomings, I think, at Bohemians, because the players that they have at the moment certainly aren't scoring enough goals.
Yeah, and then I suppose the final point for today's podcast, and it's Galway United against Waterford. Both teams who have been impressive, David, across the season, but it's the home side who got the win to stall Waterford's European momentum, and with a goal. And probably Heimir would have, for now in hindsight, he probably should have gone over to him in BC Park, because it was a long throw that that led to it. And we've been talking about long throws a lot on this week's episode, because of course the Ireland women's goal as well stemmed indirectly from a long throw as well. But that's a Galway hallmark there, set pieces, and they get a win as well, and they remain pointing upwards.
Yeah, I think the 2 that got promoted last year, obviously Galway won the league very comfortably. Waterford have probably been the more eye-catching team this year. So I'm sure John Caulfield and Ollie Horgan wanted to get one over on their other promotion team. But yeah, Galway have just had an incredible season. They're not John Caulfield, I don't think, will ever be the man for the most stylish football. And it doesn't surprise me the route that their goal came. But they certainly know how to defend, and they certainly know if they get a goal up, the opposition certainly know if Galway get a goal up, they're in for a tough ride, because Waterford seemed to dominate large bits of that game, but they couldn't find a breakthrough. And they've been excellent this season, Waterford. But Galway, I tell you what, they really know how to defend and keep a clean sheet. And they're now 3 points behind Waterford with a game in hand, level on points, I think, with Shamrock Rovers. So for those 2 teams coming up, I'm sure both managers were thinking our main thing here is survival. And at the moment, they're both looking at potential European spots. So it's been incredible from both of them, from both Caulfield and Keith Long. The jobs they've done, and for different reasons, really, but the jobs they've done has been remarkable. And I don't think either of them have any worries about relegation for this season anyway.
Yeah, and Waterford are on 37 points, 3 points clear of Shamrock Rovers, and Galway United are both on 34. And then at the bottom end, Bohemians on 26, 2 points behind St. Pat's, but Bohs do have 3 games in hand on Pats above them, and 2 games in hand on Dundalk and Drogheda behind them. Dundalk 4 points behind now, and Drogheda rock bottom on 17 points. But that brings us to a close for today. Of course, just a reminder, the Ireland women's team are playing France at Páirc Uí Chaoimh live on RT2 and RT Player from 5:30 on Tuesday in terms of the coverage. But Conan, thanks very much for taking the time, and David McMillan, we'll chat to you soon.
Thanks.
Thank you, Raf.